After all that build-up, a 3-0 home defeat to Southampton, I'm afraid it has not been worth the wait. 3 months without Premier League football for Norwich City, and it's all come sort of crashing back down to reality. I am here outside Canaries Road, a lot quieter than it would normally be. Outside the gates, Jeffrey Watling Way. I've had a long come Norwich mask on all afternoon, so apologies if you can still see the marks on my face. It's been a surreal afternoon, it really has. To be one of the 300 people inside Canaries Road covering this game, it just felt weird throughout, and I spoke to Tim Closer after the game and he very much agreed that had the fans been in there, then you never know, it might have turned, because they really needed some help. 2 goals in 5 minutes early in the second half really knocked the stuffing out of Norwich and leaves them in a real bad position, now facing up to another 8 games of the season where it's looking bleak. If they don't beat Everton here again on Wednesday, then there's probably no chance. It now is looking like a very big miracle rather than a little miracle. And then we're back here again Saturday for the FA Cup quarter-final against Manchester United. So yeah, if they don't beat Everton, then unfortunately this restart is going to be a rather damp squib, and we're all going to want it to be over sooner rather than later. You know, you've got Josh Martin, young lad who's recently signed his new contract, coming on late stages of the game today and making his debut for the club. That should be a sort of a positive that we can look back on and enjoy. But I almost felt sorry for the poor lad having to come on at 3-0 down. So there we go. I think the crux of today comes down to selection. Obviously we came into the game knowing that there'd been the triple injury blow, Hanley, Zimmerman and Byram all dropping out. That meant Tim Closer straight back in wearing the captain's armband, him and Ben Godfrey in central defence, Lewis and Aarons at full-back, Tim Krul in goal. As you kind of were expecting, there wasn't really any other choice. But in central midfield, there were choices. You had Mario Vrancic, Teti, Leitner, but it was Tribal and McLean who got the nod. A pairing which last started together in central midfield in that 2-0 defeat to Watford, which had probably been the low point of the season prior to today. So they didn't have great history on their side, and it did not work up against Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who has been linked with Tottenham and Everton recently. He's been stripped of the Southampton captaincy because during lockdown he's been talking about wanting to play for a Champions League club. But him alongside James Ward-Prowse, who's a very classy player, very good dead ball delivery, they had the run on them basically this afternoon. It didn't work out at all. Cantwell and Buendia playing sort of more as conventional wingers, but didn't have for them at all today. They were both on the periphery, and Buendia actually lost the ball ahead of the third goal. And then it was a 4-4-2 essentially. Josip Dermich playing up front with Teemu Pukki just behind. I suppose you could argue it's still a 4-2-3-1, but that selection just didn't pay off. The first 10 minutes were reasonably bright. Tom Tribal couldn't quite connect with a nice Buendia free kick in from the left, and Kenny McLean fired a really whipped low shot which went just beyond the post. Also inside the first 10 minutes, Pukki really unselfish play to poke the ball over to Dermich, who then just took a dodgy touch and his shot was deflected over in the end. So it was looking good at that point, but then from then on you could feel Southampton coming into it. You could feel them taking control of things, and to go in 0-0 at half time felt a little bit of a relief, to be honest, which is sad to say. They went very close with one break. Max Aarons went down injured, but they played on. Referee didn't stop play, and it ended up with Danny Ings sort of spooning a header towards Tim Krul under pressure for Jamal Lewis, but Cantwell and Lewis actually did well to scramble back and prevent that being a goal. Then a corner from James Ward-Prowse just before the half hour. That was Stuart Armstrong. He got the ball for a crowd of bodies, but it was straight at Tim Krul. Cantwell was then robbed in midfield by Jack Stevens, and Danny Ings hit the bar. That was the closest that Saints went, and Kenny McLean had Norwich's only shot on target of the game just before the break. But then, as I say, 2 goals in 5 minutes. Danny Ings, top scorer for Southampton, 16th of the season for him. A little bit of fortune in it, in how the ball broke to him from Armstrong in a bit of a scramble in the City box after a Southampton throw-in, but a lovely finish, curled it into the top right beyond Tim Krul. And then 5 minutes later, it's 2-0. Danny Ings, again pivotal to it, drove forward from midfield into space, offloaded to Armstrong, who cut across the box, and then a left-footed low shot into the bottom right corner didn't give Tim Krul too much chance. Max Aaron's cleared one off the line from Ward-Prowse. Norwich did have a couple of chances through Pukki, then Onel Hernandez had come on and he played his part in finding Buendia, who then shoveled the ball on to, give it more credit than that, curled the ball across to Josip Drmic, and he teed up Pukki, who took a touch when he probably should have just pulled the trigger and really should have been scoring. Cantwell, just before that, had poked Pukki through, and again, just a little bit of hesitancy. Wasn't the Pukki that we know and love, and the chance came and went, and it went for a corner. Vrancic did get the ball in the back of the net after he'd come on. That was a closer header from a corner, and Vrancic was well offside, so I don't think, even if there would have been fans in the stadium, that there would have been too much hope of that one standing. And then Nathan Redmond coming back to haunt Norwich, 79th minute. Danny Ings again, so pivotal, probably man of the match, robs Emi Buendia in the Southampton half, passes it off to Obafemi, the Irish striker, and he squares it to Redmond, who drops his shoulder, gets that little bit of daylight beyond Ben Godfrey, and then a nice finish low past Tim Krul into the bottom corner. And that's 3-0, that's good night. Substitutes were rolled through at that point, which was fun for reporters to keep up with. And in the end, it finishes with Norwich having 55% of the possession, but 0 points and 0 credit in the bank. They had 9 shots on goal compared to Southampton's 20, but just 1 on target compared to Southampton's 7. So a day very much to forget for Norwich. They now have to wait and see how bad the damage will be. All their rivals play tomorrow at home. If I can remember them off the top of my head, Brighton at home to Leicester, West Ham to Wolves, Bournemouth to Palace, and Watford to Arsenal, I think, if I've got that in the right order. So yeah, they're all at home, and until we've seen how many points they take, then we can't really judge this. But even if 2 of them get a win, it's probably looking like Norwich are heading back to the Championship. So that'll do. A weird old day at Carrow Road. We'll have more before the season's out. And if they don't get that win on Wednesday against Everton, then it's going to be a difficult end to the season, and we're going to be turning attentions to the Championship far sooner than Daniel Farke would like.